If you look at your calendar and there's nothing scary over the next 3-4 weeks, you're not going to have the best month of your life, because playing small and sitting on the bench, as comfortable as it is, it's not going to make you feel alive.
Welcome to the Shine Strategy Podcast, where entrepreneurs, visionaries, and business owners are getting visible and changing the world. I'm your host, Heather Burgett, an award-winning publicist, entrepreneur, and business mentor. Today's show is sponsored by PR Stars. For more inspiration and Shine strategies, head over to shineinsiders.com now for my free masterclass so that you too can get visible and go from local to global. Hey, Shine Insiders. Thank you so much for being here today, and thanks for listening to the show. We've been working so hard, pouring our heart and soul into these episodes, and I really hope that you're enjoying them. And we've got another great one coming up for you today. But before we get into that, I just want to quickly address something, because I see so many of you out there hustling, spinning your wheels, and just getting really frustrated with trying to get yourselves out there and reach your audience. And I'm taking a stand for you. I am here to pull back the curtain, share what I know about getting visible and impacting a global audience so that your customers can come to you, they can find you and come to you pre-sold for whatever it is you're putting out into the world. And we do that through publicity. So I'm opening my PR Stars Inner Circle for enrollment. If you think it's something that you might want to check out, I want you to head over to prstars.net and go to the PR Stars Inner Circle program and apply there. Now, you might be wondering, is it for me? You're not sure. If you are a small business owner, if you have a product, a service, a message, a movement, something you're putting out into the world, a nonprofit, yes, it is time. Yesterday was the time to be thinking about your PR. A lot of this is about releasing the past and illuminating your story. If you're a heart-centered business owner or creative who really wants to confidently make the world a better place with what you're doing, then you are in the right spot. You probably want to serve more people with your special gifts. You know you have a true calling, but you still feel like you're playing a little small. You really do want to make the world a better place, and you crave global awareness, and you know your business deserves it. And you might have thought at some point or another, free advertising and PR sounds like a good plan. So I'm here to show you how it's done, to help you, to support you, to help you go from unknown to known. And, you know, if any of this is resonating with you at all, please go over to prstars.net and just check out the Inner Circle. See what's there for you, what's available, the support, the resources. If you want to get to know me a little better and work with me personally, that is a place to go and do that. So again, prstars.net, and I look forward to seeing you over there. In the meantime, we're going to dig into this amazing episode today, so here we go. Hello, Shine Insiders. Thank you so much for being here today. And boy, do I have a treat for you. I am so excited about our next guest. She is a fire hose of inspiration. She's the host of the popular podcast, Don't Keep Your Day Job, which has been given the #1 spot on iTunes' recommended list of shows for the new year in 2018 and 2019. She now has 9 million downloads. She's been featured all over the place, from New York Times, Inc. magazine, Forbes, Entrepreneur. She has such a huge, amazing following. She's interviewed some of the top entrepreneurs and business owners and coaches out there. She has a book coming out in November. And she's just a phenomenal coach for creative entrepreneurs, and she's helping people everywhere find a deeper sense of purpose and add their gifts to the world. She often says purpose is the opposite of depression. So with all that being said, I'd like to welcome Cathy Heller.
Thank you so much. So appreciate that. Thank you.
We were just chatting a little bit before we started here, and it just feels like everything we're doing, it feels very much in alignment with working with purpose-driven, heart-centered business owners and creatives. And I'd love to just hear a little bit about your own journey and take us back to, how you got into this. So my understanding is that you've had some success in film and TV licensing. So How did that happen? And then how did you make the jump into the podcasting and coaching world?
Thank you for all of it. I should just take you with me wherever I go so that you can introduce me in the nicest way. Really,
I'll be there.
Okay, great. Yeah, because you have so much free time. I came out to LA 16 years ago to pursue my dreams. I grew up in a house like a lot of other people where my parents were fighting and miserable, and I really wanted to get as far from there as possible. And I always wanted to write music. That was always my sort of like deep desire. And I think for many of us, we don't know what's possible. So we think it's either all or nothing. And so for me, the only thing I thought in my mind was if I want to be making money as a musician, I have to sell out stadiums and make gold records. And so that's it. That's all that I could do, which does feel pretty out of reach. But I did get in the old Volvo and come across the country, just like every beginning of every movie. And my parents were dealing with their really hard divorce at the time. And my mom was really depressed and suicidal. And I didn't have a trust fund or know anybody out here. And I didn't have any money or even emotional support. I was just kind of doing it like 24 years old. And like, I just really wanted it so badly. And that was what I had. And I did wind up getting a record deal. I got signed to Interscope, which felt very surreal. And I felt like I had hiked up this unsurmountable mountain. And I got to the top of the mountain and I found out that I was like meeting the Wizard of Oz who couldn't get me home because I wound up getting dropped from the label. And they told me, you're really talented, but we're not 100% certain that we're going to sell millions of records and we can't take the chance.
Oh, that's brutal.
Yeah. And so they kind of said like, go have a great life. And I was like, sort of like dropped back out onto the real world streets. And that's when everybody said, see, you have to quote unquote grow up now. You have to quote unquote get a real job. You have to be practical and you have to be real, Kath. And real means, for a lot of people listening, I'm sure you've heard it, real means you have to suffer. You have to leave the thing you love for the weekend. When you retire, maybe you'll be happy. But for right now, you need to be a grown up. And part of being an adult means you don't get to do what you love all the time.
Sucking it up, yeah.
Right? So I did it. I did the real thing. I, did it as real as I could. I got a real estate license because a friend of mine said, well, if you're not going to do something you love, do something that makes money. And so I worked for a guy in Brentwood who sold commercial real estate. And we were talking to people all day long about investing in properties that were hundreds of millions of dollars. And that's super fulfilling, isn't it? No, it's not. I also worked at a nonprofit because I thought, well, if I'm not going to do the thing I love, maybe I'll be a good person and help other people. And I come to find out nonprofits are some of the most dysfunctional places to work where you're so stressed out and it's not pleasant. And I thought, this isn't going to work. And then I thought, well, maybe I'll do something creative that's more quote unquote real. So I'll get a job at an interior design firm. And then I found out, well, you actually have to be good at like math. You actually know how to draw things and measure things. And I thought, I don't know what I'm going to do with my life. And I remember pulling over on the side of the road because I was crying so hard in my car. And I thought, I can't do this. Like, I can't be a person who goes to some job where I don't feel like myself just to go home and watch Law and Order and do it again the next day. Like, I will fall apart. I didn't come out to LA to do this thing where I'm pretending like, Barbie, there's like vet Barbie, astronaut Barbie, like you can have all these different Barbies. And I felt like all the different things I tried, it was me trying on a costume to be somebody else. And so I thought, there's gotta be a way. There's gotta be something in between me and Taylor Swift, in between me and Beyonce. There's gotta be a way, right? Like, aren't there other things I can do with my talent? Because I did have enough talent to get close. Yeah, and I was like, there's gotta be some other way. There's just gotta be. And the truth is that I had this sort of low point where I felt like, if there's no other way, I don't even want to be here anymore. Because I think that deep down, everyone's looking for quote unquote happiness, right? I want to be happier. And people are telling you, buy this car, you'll be happier. Be in this relationship, you'll be happier. Make this much money, you'll be happier. Buy a house. And I think what we're all really seeking is to feel seen. I think more than being quote unquote happy, it's this thing that no box you check will get you. It's no amount of money. It's a feeling of living life on your terms and feeling like I am seen. People, I know I'm myself, right? That's like, why be free if you're not even free to be yourself? So I had this existential crisis of like, well, I better figure out a way to be myself because I don't even know why people do this. Like, why do you work so hard to grow through all of the pain? Anyone who's listening by the age of 7, you have already gone through so much. You've lost people, you've been hurt, rejected, you've been grieving. Like you go through all that just to grow up to be a person who has to pretend to be someone you don't want to be. Like that feels wrong. And so I was like determined. And I guess that's when we change, when our back is up against the wall. So I started looking into that, and lo and behold, there were a million points of light on the spectrum besides Beyonce, right? Like there were so many things. And I'm like, why didn't anyone ever tell me? And I think it's like that Rumi quote, what you seek is seeking you. It's like, if you have the courage to look in greater detail, you're going to find the answer you want. We find the evidence for what we believe to be true. We will dig and we'll find it. And so a week later, I was reading Billboard magazine, and there was an article about indie musicians who didn't have record deals, whose songs were being used in television shows like Grey's Anatomy and One Tree Hill, which was on at the time, and Coca-Cola commercials. And I thought, what is this whole beast?
You're like I can do this.
I can do this. Like I worked hard to get the attention of like producers and Interscope. I could do this. And so I started to make calls, and I was shaking, and I would call an ad agency and try to figure out who the person was I needed to talk to. And they would say, oh, you need to talk to the creative side. You need to talk to someone who's in the broadcast production team, and they'll tell you what kind of music they need for Dr. Pepper. And I was like, okay. And I was so scared, and I wanted to hang up so bad. And sometimes I did. And then I would say to myself, are you going to let this feeling of being so uncomfortable stand in between having a life that maybe makes sense, where you get to be yourself, versus like being uncomfortable so you don't make the call? And sure enough, I talked to people, and I would ask them questions about like what they needed and how I could be helpful on the project. And I realized that worked, that instead of me trying to convince someone to like listen to my song, I should just ask them like, what's the creative? What's the direction? What story are you telling? And then could I actually work on a song that might help tell the story, right? And a lot of times I could, because they would tell me, oh, this campaign is all about family. And I would say, I could write you a song about family. Like that's so easy, right? I could be authentic and write a song about how important that is to come home, right? What does coming home mean? So I started to find my way. And then I would reach out to Paramount, Lionsgate, NBC, and do the same thing. And I had a huge breakthrough one time because I was emailing and calling, and sometimes I wouldn't hear back, and I was getting frustrated. So I kept like upping the ante of how I could break through the noise. And I'm sure, Heather, you've done a lot of this because you're so good at PR. But eventually I was like, I got to be scrappy about this. I got to try new things. And so I remember one day, and I'm not a graphic designer at all, not by a long shot, but I made this cute little PDF, which was like a little picture of a girl playing guitar, a cartoon character playing guitar, I found it online, and then a plus sign. And then I put a picture of a Starbucks drink. And I sent this little PDF. It said mochas and music at the top. And I said, step 1, what's your favorite Starbucks drink? Step 2, what day and time can I drop it off? Step 3, I'll leave you with some music and some coffee.
Oh, brilliant. That's I love that tactic, because we in PR a lot of times we do meet and greets or desk side chats where we propose bringing in coffee or meeting for coffee. And that I love that you took that tactic and were so creative about it.
And so much of all of this, everything that I now teach and what I've learned on my own journey is like, you just do it scared, but you do it. Do something. Like a lot of people don't have what they want in their life just because they probably didn't do enough about it. And it's probably because they felt really inadequate or nervous, or they felt messy and they didn't want to do it unless they knew for sure it'd be the perfect PDF and it would look perfect and it would say the perfect thing. And sometimes you get so much momentum just by getting into action. And so I remember sending that out, and a bunch of people wrote back and said, sure, you could bring me coffee. And it just was like a snowball. And long story short, I wound up being really successful licensing music to film and TV and ads. And I wound up making about $300,000 a year. And I did that for 10 years. I did it for a decade. And I thought that was what I would do until more doors started opening. And that came in the form of other artists asking me if I could pitch their music. And I at first said no. And then I thought, well, why couldn't I add another hyphen to my name and be an agent for other artists? And so I said yes. And then there were a lot of artists asking me how they could learn how to do what I did, or how to write the songs that actually work, and how to connect with the people in the industry. And I started a course called 6-Figure Songwriting online, and that made $2 million a year. And I was like, oh my God. And then people who took my class started to get real results, and they started to change their life, and they started to have their songs and ads for Starbucks and Hyundai and Taco Bell and Target and different television shows like Grey's Anatomy, like Younger, like Criminal Minds. And I thought, oh my God. And then there was a girl in my class about 3.5 years ago, and she said, you should start a podcast for creatives because most of what you teach could be applied to any person with a dream. And I said, what's a podcast? Let me try it. And it's like, it's amazing how that feels like this thing called podcasting, which I didn't even know that it was a thing at all 4 years ago. Now we have almost 9 million downloads of the show. I've interviewed Howard Schultz, who started Starbucks. I've interviewed some of the biggest authors that I've looked up to all these years, like Gretchen Rubin, like Mark Manson. It's been phenomenal. I just had Brian Grazer on my show, who's partners with Ron Howard. They did Apollo 13, A Beautiful Mind. It's been absolutely fantastic. And over the last couple of years, I've now started coaching creatives of all kinds and people who have big hearts and helping them make a business out of what they love.
Oh my gosh. So it's like you are a walking billboard for your business, which I love. It's like I love this concept of the doing it scared, because it's like, so often that is when we have to, get outside our comfort zones to get to that next place of where we actually want to be. And I love what you talked about, overcoming that fear. It's like you had to have more passion than the fear. So it was like, it still was scary, but you knew this was something you wanted to do, you loved doing, you had to do it. And so then the fear you have to just kind of step over it, right?
Yeah.
Would you say that's sort of the approach?
Yeah, I think it's doing it with the fear. Like, I don't think the fear goes away ever. I think sometimes the thing that you're really meant to do is going to bring up the most feelings of resistance, because we all have an upper limit and we stay in our comfort zone. And then there's this thing that's on the other side of you being in the same place of your comfort zone. But I feel like if you look at your calendar and there's nothing scary over the next 3-4 weeks, you're not going to have the best month of your life, because you deeply desire to level up and you want to grow. And playing small and sitting on the bench, as comfortable as it is, it's not going to make you feel alive.
Oh my gosh. I just came back from an executive networking event at an Irish castle with executives from around the world. One of our keynotes, Mark Reynolds, he said something that stuck with me so much. And it was that if your vision and dreams aren't scaring you, they're not big enough. I so resonate with what you're saying. And so this other piece too about being seen, I mean, obviously this show is all about shine strategies, getting visible so people can impact the world with their messages and make a difference in the world. And when you said that, it just hit me that how being seen is so important. I've heard that with homeless people, that one of the biggest issues they have is just people like walking by them as if they don't exist.
Yeah, and they feel invisible, and it's a horrible feeling.
They just want to be seen. And so that's why I always try to, when they talk to me or say hello, I always respond and I don't ignore them, because how horrible that must feel to just feel invisible in that way. So I'd love to also know, because you talk so much about your childhood and your parents, like how do you think the challenges you had as a kid have influenced where you're at today?
I think it's everything. I think that our mess becomes our message, our pain becomes our purpose. I think that when people are thinking to themselves, like, who's my audience? Who am I supposed to help in this world? It's you. Like, you're it. It's the version of it. It's the version of you who you were 5 minutes ago, 5 years ago, 15 weeks ago, right? Like when Gretchen Rubin started out on this quest to be happier, who's she helping? She's helping people who are in the same position who want to also learn how to be happier. Now, does that mean you have to have all the answers? No, you don't have to be the expert. You could just take people along the journey with you, or maybe you do have some answer, or maybe you did create something that helped you. So you made an app, or you created this piece of art and it's helping you to heal. So it's now being made for the people who need it most, who need to heal from the same things. So it helped me to have the journey I went through, because I would never have the drive to do this as unrelenting as I'm doing it if it wasn't that I had a deep, deep pain, right? Where my parents were really unhappy. They were really consumed with their own stuff. My mom was very depressed and anxious and suicidal. My dad left the marriage and didn't turn back. So I felt completely invisible. And I want to make sure that every kid, every adult, every person feels that they matter. Like, you don't have to have Michael Jordan talent to matter. You don't have to have the worst tragedy story to matter. You could just be a person who lives right off of Main Street. And guess what? We need you. Like, you're amazing. Like, really and truly. I mean, every person, every single person has a different set of DNA and different fingerprints, right? And there's no evolutionary need for that unless every person has been assigned. And without each person doing their thing in the world is not whole.
The tingles are happening. I'm like, oh, I love this. Yes.
I just don't believe that there are any extras. And so I think that there's so much possibility around us all the time, but we create limitation because we tell ourselves a story over and over that there's no room for us, or that it's already been done, or that we're not good enough to do it. And I think that that's really just a limiting belief that comes from not wanting to feel pain. Because I think at some point in everyone's life, by the age of 10, they were hurt and rejected. And so I think we all come up with this amazing strategy, which is, oh, I know what I'll do. I know how I won't get hurt. I won't want it. Or I'll tell myself it's impossible. And you only get it if you're lucky anyway, so why bother? And then I don't have to be messy. And then I don't have to put my hand up and lead when I'm terrified. Because everyone who's ever done anything important, whether they're leading a group of women at a retreat, or they're making art, or they're writing music, or they're a parent, like anyone who's ever done anything really is making it up as they go. So it's not about having the most talent. It's not about having the perfect plan. It's having the courage to just go ahead and do it, even though you do not know what you're doing. And part of that is having the tolerance to be inadequate and make something mediocre at first, because you can only make something brilliant when you've actually allowed yourself first to make several mediocre things. I love this analogy. Like when you go to a cabin in Vermont and you turn on the faucet, it doesn't run clear. No one's been there in 4 months. So you turn the faucet on and there's like brown sludgy water. But then if you let the water come running out, within 12, 15 seconds, it's running clearer and clearer, and now it's fine. So each one of us has to allow for that brown sludgy water to first come out. Your first blog post will be bad. Your first podcast will be bad. It's bad is subjective, but it's not going to be as good as it will evolve. And we've lost the ability to become brilliant at things because we don't give ourselves the permission to be messy. So we sit it out. And I think I've just always had the courage to do it badly. And people want me to tell them something else. Like, no, it's because you knew a formula, or you had the right hashtag, right? Or you knew someone at Apple. It's like, no, I was willing to be terrified and feel like I was going to throw up and press publish anyway, write the song anyway, go to the co-write anyway, walk into the office at NBC anyway. And I did not want to go. And I did it anyway.
Oh, I love this. So much about being brave. And I love that you talk a lot about that on your show. It's saying things like that we're braver than we know. We do have the answers within, and that we often underestimate our own resourcefulness. Can you speak a little more to that?
Yeah, we totally underestimate that. I mean, I think people believe that I hear it all the time. Like, how come you didn't try that thing? Why didn't you write the script? Why didn't you start your business? How come you didn't start your own podcast? Oh, I didn't know the people I need to know. Oh, I don't have the time. Oh, I don't have the money. And then we just stop, because your brain, when you tell yourself something like that, you will look for evidence that that's true. So you say to yourself, I don't have the money. And then even if that's not even remotely part of the problem, your brain will go, oh yeah, you don't have the money, so why even bother? Oh, you didn't know the right person, why even bother? We underestimate that our greatest resource is our resourcefulness, because there is no greater thing that creates momentum more than enthusiasm, more than passion, more than compassion, more than empathy. So when you go out in the world and you just go ahead and just like, you're putting it out there, like, this is what you want to create, this is what you dream of, this is your enthusiasm, people rally together. I mean, I knew a guy a few years ago who was looking for a bone marrow transplant, and he was told, this is what your situation is. It was really bad. Do you think they got resourceful to find a match? Oh, yeah, they did. I mean, they used every possible thing they could think to do until they got celebrities tweeting about giving a donation to see if they were like they went far and wide. And not only did they found 8 matches for 8 other people.
Wow.
So are we resourceful? Yeah.
When we want to be.
When we want to be, exactly. And when I was interviewing Brian Grazer recently, it was really fascinating because he produced Apollo 13, A Beautiful Mind, Splash, all these incredible movies. Some of the best, right. And he wrote a book recently called Face to Face, and he was saying that when he was 23, 24 years old, like just starting out, no fame, no credibility, failed, bad grades, never went to film school, nothing, just a kid. He made it his priority to set meetings with people. And he would reach out to people like Warren Beatty, and he would say things like, he would call his assistant and say, I don't need a job. I don't need anything. I just really look up to you, and I would love 5 minutes to ask you what you think it takes to be successful. And my friend Alex Benayan just did that and wrote a book called The Third Door after getting to meet with Lady Gaga, Bill Gates, Warren Buffett. How did he do it? Because the enthusiasm, every person, it doesn't matter whether you're Elon Musk, whoever it is, every human being is always ready and willing to talk to somebody who's generous and empathetic and enthusiastic. That energy that offers so much. So when I sent that thing, like, do you want coffee? Do you want, can I bring you coffee? I'll drop off some music. There's a reaction to like, you know what? This person is really enthusiastic and they're thinking out of the box and they're leading with empathy, right? Because I think a lot of people, part of the reason we don't do the outreach, part of the reason we don't try to put ourselves out there is because we feel like we're convincing someone, we're selling someone, and nobody wants to do that. And you're right, it doesn't work. But when you find a person's wallet on the street, you won't hesitate to call, and it's because you want to give them something. So I've used every single thing I've ever done, and I'm thinking, how can I help? How can I serve? Right? So when I was calling the ad agencies, I wasn't saying, hey, I'm a songwriter. Can I send you music? It's like, why are they on the hook to do homework and listen to my music? It's no one's job to give me an opportunity. But if I'm calling and saying, I have a skill and I want to help serve your vision, how can I solve the problem? And often they would say, nobody asks us that. Nobody's starting from that place of like, what do we need? And business is empathy. Business is I'm making something someone else needed or wanted. And truly, we're all deeply desiring to contribute in that way. That's what makes us feel fulfilled. So I really appreciated when Brian Grazer told me that he would reach out to these very successful people and try to set meetings. I said to him, the fact that you had the enthusiasm and the courage, but that you believed you had something to offer. And he said, yeah, because I know everyone wants to feel seen. So what does it hurt them to have someone sitting in front of them who's not trying to put their hands in their pockets, but really just wants to witness how awesome they are from a true place, that makes them feel amazing. And that is what I had to offer. And boy, did I grow from that.
Oh, that's such a fabulous lesson. And
it is.
I think there was one of our speakers from the castle, Christopher Kai, he had a story where he walked right up he saw Elon Musk at the ballet, at the Montage. He's a global keynote speaker. So, but it's Elon Musk. And He just walked right up to him, introduced himself, said he was working with his nonprofit for homeless kids and would he like to come speak to the kids, and got his email and left. And sure enough, Elon Musk came down and met the kids. And so sometimes it's just really like having that confidence. I think you're so right with that point. It's just so important.
Yeah, and I think the reason we don't have the confidence because we do not think we're enough. And whatever we want to put out in the world, most of the time people build things backwards where they're like, here's what I think I should do, and I got to prove myself, and I got to create this thing, and I'm not just going to make one piece of jewelry, I'm going to make 100 pieces and make them special. And no, slow down. The most important thing is to know who you're making it for. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to make 100 pieces. Make one piece. And then right away figure out who you're making it for and get this in front of her and ask her what colors she likes, what stones she likes, and then make the next 8 pieces in tandem as a dialogue with the person you're serving. And then when you have that empathy, you know that you can be reaching out because you're like, oh, I want to serve this person. And I wrote the play that I know that they're going to want to help me produce because it really speaks to their vision because we already discussed it because I sent them the first scene and then we talked about it and then I finished writing it. Or I made these mugs and then I realized that this group of, people wanted it in these pastel colors. And so I put that gloss on it. And now I know that this is the right boutique. And I'm excited to reach out because I know I'm helping solve the need. Like, I think most people are building it without the empathy piece. And then we feel like we have to convince people to want things, and that doesn't work.
Yeah, and so much is, getting the feedback from the people you are serving or helping or the people that are actually showing up. And so much when it comes to like our PR and marketing is I always, tell my clients or my members, I say, well, let's ask them, why they're here. Because then you find out the exact verbiage that you can be using in your own marketing. Because sometimes, we can't see the forest through the trees. Like we're so close to it. But the people that are right there with you in front of you, they have so many of the answers as well to helping you hash out your verbiage, your branding, your marketing, all of those things.
Yeah. Every company that any of us loves, whether it's Skippy peanut butter or Apple products, this is how it begins. It's like, we're making this peanut butter. Oh, let's gather a group of moms together.
The focus group.
Right. Like, let's make something for someone. It's so much easier to make dinner for someone when you know if they're gluten-free than just like making something and they go, oh, I don't eat sushi, but thank you so much.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I love listening to your interview with Gabby Bernstein, and you are talking with her about the concept of how feeling good is more important than what you want. It just seems like that is such a powerful piece of when it comes to, sort of the law of attraction. I know her new book is, I think it's The Attraction Factor.
Super Attractor, I think it's
Super Attractor. Yeah. Can you speak a little bit more to that in the conversation you had with her?
Yeah, that was really powerful because I do think that we want all of these things and it feels so far away. But then you ask yourself, why do you want that, right? Like, let's say I want to be in a relationship. I want to make $1 million. I want all these things. Those are beautiful things to want. Why? Well, I never thought about it. Let me think. I think that'll make me feel a sense of belonging to be in a relationship. Or I want to have more money so I can have the freedom to get a massage and take a walk and just feel like I'm soaking in the finer things. And what you wind up realizing is that so much of what you desire, it's not a thing, it's a feeling. Like, if I have this thing, maybe it'll make me feel this. It's the feeling. That's what you want. What you're really hoping for is that this thing will make you feel calmer. This thing will make you feel fuller. This one will make you feel loved. And what Danielle Laporte talks about and Gabby Bernstein talks about, as you just mentioned, is that we actually can feel those feelings right now.
Right. Before
we get the $1 million. And then by cultivating a way to really drop in to a better sort of equanimity inside of ourselves, we start attracting so much more magic into our life. And so I think that this world of personal development, I think it's really bigger than ever because people have an awareness that we suffer way, way more than we need to. Like, pain is inevitable, but suffering is pretty optional. You're going to go through things that are going to hurt. That's just called being on the planet, and it's unfortunate that it's that way, but that's part of life. But the suffering is usually because we're constantly repeating a story and certain thoughts that make us feel lousy. And Gabby's point, just like my therapist's point, I do cognitive behavioral therapy, and she says the same thing, which is choose a different thought. It really is something we have control over. And then you ask yourself, why don't I want to choose a different thought?
Right. Simple but complex.
Right. And the answer is because I want to stay feeling bad. Why? Because maybe you feel like it protects you. Maybe if you keep telling yourself that you're not lucky, maybe if you keep telling yourself that all men are really not kind, you won't be in a relationship and you won't be blindsided because you won't be vulnerable to being open to it. So your brain was created to help you stay safe. And so a lot of times we continue to regurgitate these thoughts that are not going to make us feel good. And we've grown accustomed to them. And there's something about it that feels like a protection. And really, it's just like sucking the life out of us. And it's brave to say, what if I let myself feel good? Some people have a hard time letting themselves think a thought that makes you feel good because you feel shame. Like, who am I to feel this good? Or am I worthy of this? Or what about all the other people who are not celebrating right now? And why am I allowing for myself to feel better? It's really deep work. But most people, I would say, have this upper limit of like only letting themselves feel. Like, have you ever had the experience where you're in your marriage, you're in a relationship, and you have like 3 really good days in a row, and then something starts to feel a little scary about that? So you pick a fight with your partner.
Right.
And then you go, oh, this is better. Like, I'm a little bit angry and crabby now, but it feels more normal.
Right.
Right? Or Brene Brown talks about how joy is the scariest thing because she'll be walking back, to her house, having a really good day, and it'll hit her like, I love my neighborhood, and I'm about to walk in and see my family, and she'll have this moment of like, I love my life. And 5 seconds later, she'll have this thought, what if my husband got hit by a car? Oh my God, what if all these foreboding thoughts? And she'll say, oh, that's why people don't go into a state of joy. Because as soon as we let joy come in, we feel vulnerable and scared. So we haven't practiced tolerating the feeling of joy. What we do is we practice feeling all these other feelings, and what we practice, we get better at. And so we spend a lot of time feeling these uncomfortable things because we think it's going to keep us safe from losing things. And it's going to keep us safe from having to do things too, right? Like, if you keep telling yourself, no, there's no way you'd ever be successful. No, I'll just keep complaining about what I don't have. I don't have to do anything about it. But if I actually tell myself things are possible, or I have so much inside of me and really all I need is my own enthusiasm, then I actually have to be vulnerable and go do something with it.
Right.
So there's a lot wrapped up in that, but that's what that conversation was about. And that's why we have a lot more control over feeling good. But do we want to?
Powerful stuff. Oh my gosh. So with your journey, I mean, it's a daily thing being human and the ups and downs. Like, what are some of the tools that you use to keep your sanity and yourself on track?
Oh my gosh. So many things. I mean, partly this podcast has like completely changed my life because the more you teach something, right, the more you internalize it. And so the more I'm teaching, the more I'm growing, and it becomes like a habit. And I'm fueling myself with such inspiring things every day. So it starts to redirect my thoughts in a much more productive, like inspirational bent, which is great. So I'm listening to really important things that are supercharging me. I tell people all the time, like, you have an iPhone, and everyone who's listening right now, ballpark what percentage your battery's on. Like, we all just do. Like, we know it all the time. But we don't do that for ourselves. And so what I do is I try to get ahead of that by, you wake up and instead of just like checking email, I definitely fall into that. But at some point in the morning, I watch something or read something that reminds me of all the things I need to be reminded of that lift me up. And that's so supercharging because that's like charging your iPhone as opposed to going, oh, I don't need to charge my iPhone. Let's just wing it. No, don't just wing it because by 4:00 your phone will be dead. And that's most of us. Like, our batteries are not charged. And then we wonder why we don't have the wherewithal to take the action. Well, you can't take action because your belief is on 0 right now. And everything that anyone does is because they're in like a high energy state of mind. Like, your belief fuels your action. So I do a lot of that where I'm like really sort of directing that and feeding myself with things that charge me. And then I also have a therapist, a CBT, cognitive behavioral therapist, which is great because we can talk out and tease out some things that I can work on. And that's all about behavior, changing your behavior. Like, you can talk about it, but do stuff, because the doing, again, builds confidence and clarity and changes the way you experience things. Like, maybe you're afraid. Some people are afraid of public speaking. But if you do it, the next time you do it, you won't be as afraid. Instead of being at a 10, you'll be an 8.
Right.
Same thing with flying. If you're afraid of flying, they'll tell you to get on the plane. And then after your fourth flight, instead of being at a 10, you'll be like scared like number 4, and you'll just get better at it. So doing the thing, I think ultimately, the more we do that keeps us, the more we're doing that we're scared of, actually, we start to, it's amazing how we build a new ceiling. Whatever feels like your ceiling right now becomes your floor, and you just expand.
I love that. I love that analogy. And I love the phone analogy too of charging it. Now you have a book coming out as well. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what drove you to write it?
Yeah, I really had so much to say, and I feel like I already have a second book because there's so much I would have added in the first book, and there was a point in which they were like, you have to turn it in, like that's it. And I was like, okay, this will all go in the second one. I just have such a deep desire to help people get out of their own way and get them unstuck and help people live life on their terms. I know people are suffering. I know people want to be free, and I know people have beautiful ideas and gifts that they can give to the world that will help the world feel more seen and less alone, and bring more donuts and pottery and dance and music and art and all these things to the world. And I think the world needs so much more of that, especially since like 50% of the job market will be, those jobs won't even exist over the next 5 to 10 years. It's like, it's just a constant reminder that we have to get busy building our own dream instead of someone else's. So I wrote a book that helps people internalize the most important things I talk about on the show, how to figure out what you want to do, how to get clear on what that is, because a lot of people don't even know, or they have a couple ideas. And then it helps you figure out what are the steps you can take to really launch that so that that can become something that's a real thing rather than a pipe dream.
Oh, beautiful. And something I love to always ask my guests, because it gives us so much insight into who you are, and you've already given us so much. I love how just genuine and transparent you are with your own personal stories and everything. But if you could go back in time and give advice to a younger version of yourself, what would that advice be?
I think I would tell her that the 6-year-old version of her has a tremendous amount of wisdom, and she's lovable, and it's so obvious. Like everyone who's listening right now, if you think of yourself at 6, maybe think about a picture of you that comes to mind. We all have seen pictures of ourselves from that age. So think of one picture, like picture what you're wearing, red shirt, Brett in your hair, funny haircut, whatever it is. If you think about that girl, she's so obviously lovable. Like it's so effortless to see. And I think we spend a lot of time telling that little girl inside of us that she's not enough, or to like sit on the bench, or don't you dare dream because it will never happen. And you would never say that to an actual 6-year-old. So I would go back and tell this little girl, everything you are, with all your brokenness and all your messiness, there's so much room for you to do just this in the world. And the world needs it. And you're going to heal people just by being you. And whatever seems silly or ridiculous about you, it's not. There's a synchronicity to following those creativity little whispers, and go ahead and try it. And I would also tell her, you're going to be led to how you can serve the most. So you might not wind up doing the thing that someone told you should do, or that you think you should do. Maybe it won't be a record deal. But I guarantee if you're willing to have the courage to keep going and put yourself out in the world will lead you exactly to where you're supposed to serve, and you will feel so fulfilled.
Oh my gosh, that's so beautiful. And I think that's such an important message too, in this day and age with social media and so many young people feeling inadequate because of what they're seeing out there in the world. So that is such a powerful message for anyone to hear, especially young children, and I mean anyone at any age really, but that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And you have, I know, some exciting things happening right now that our listeners can take advantage of. Do you want to share a little bit about what's coming up, or how they can get involved or reach you?
Totally. Normally, because of the busyness of, I have 3 little kids myself. I have 3 little girls, 7, 6, and 3. And then the podcast, we do 2 shows a week. So we record 4, we put out 2, and then I have these coaching programs, and I'm also still running a licensing agency for songwriters. So I'm very busy running a 7-figure business, which has a lot of different arms in it, plus being a mom. So because of that, I don't usually do what I'm doing right now, but because we're launching the book and we wanted to put so much fire behind it and do everything we could and not leave any stone unturned, I'm offering a bunch of bonuses for people who buy the book. And not only do you get the book by buying it, but we're offering right now for people who buy the book, you get a workshop, a 2-hour live workshop that I'm giving on all the essential things to build this dream job. How do you quit your job? How do you build the runway while you have the job? How do you figure out what it is? How do you scale it? How do you price it? How do you find your customer? How do you serve them with empathy? And all of that you can find details on at don'tkeepyourdayjob.com/book-bonus. And we're doing other things too. Like if people want me to do speaking in their city or lead a Zoom chat for their friends, I'm telling people, DM me on Instagram and tell me how many books you want to buy, and we'll figure out some kind of a situation. So I'm just really open right now to doing everything I can to serve, because I do want people to read the book. And I do feel like this is a message that's really not about me. It's about a community of souls that deserves to feel seen. So I know that if the book gets, has a big splash, it'll start to have a snowball effect and more people will just consume this message. And it's important to me. In the book, not only do I help people to define what they love and build a business around it, but I tell stories of listeners from my show who over the last 2 years listening to my show have had the courage and taken some of the steps I talk about to build a business. And we talk about one particular person, Greg Franklin, who lives in Missouri, who was taught to grow up and just get health insurance and just take a job, any job. And so here he lives in the Midwest working at a dog food factory, and he was miserable. And his job was to stand in front of a machine all day. And he started listening to the show, and next thing he knew, he made a couple cheesecakes and they were bad. And he made a couple more and he gave one to the fire station down the street. And they called back the next day and said, "Could you make a dozen of these? They were delicious." And it started like that. And he started to sell some cheesecake in town and walk into town with a freezer bag. And he would go into the bank and the salon and the post office and sell a few cheesecakes here and there until finally he got fired from his factory job and he opened his own cheesecake shop. And now he makes more money in a day in his cheesecake shop, and he's selling all over the state, and different grocery stores are selling his product in different chains. And it's amazing. It's amazing. And I could tell you another 20 stories like that from people who've started their own mobile bookstores. This girl who lives in Calgary, to another vegan. She's a Nigerian girl who started her own vegan cookbook and started to sell it and make pop-up evenings at restaurants in London, to a girl in Brooklyn who had a serious injury and was fired from her job and couldn't work because she was on disability, and then created her own movie and it went to Sundance. So those stories are in the book, and I think that it gives people a lot of inspiration. So yeah, I want people to read it, and that's why we're offering all kinds of things to help entice people to buy the book.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. And I love hearing those kinds of stories because, it does take a lot of encouragement and inspiration for people that are out there trying to start up their businesses, or maybe they are a small business, they've been doing it for a while, or a creative that's trying to figure it out. So just the examples of knowing that other people have done it and how they've done it is amazing to hear.
I agree. I think it helps a lot too to hear that, especially because it's one thing to hear about Howard Schultz and how he built 35,000 Starbucks stores. But it's another thing to hear about someone who's right down the street from you doing something that makes them happy. It really is a doable thing. It's not all or nothing. You could start selling, 50 pies a week, and next thing you know, you're making an extra $1,000 a week, and it starts to grow from there.
It's amazing. Well, you're the walking embodiment of it. You've done it for yourself. You started, way back when, and had your own kind of up and down journey through it all, and have found yourself here in this amazing place where you're able to have this visibility and this platform to impact so many people around the world and support them and help them. And I feel like the big takeaway for everyone today really is just, having this courage to be brave and do it scared and with enthusiasm, and that, it sounds like for you, is kind of been your core differentiator in terms of maybe the secret sauce to your success.
I think that you're right, and thank you for saying that. I do think it's having the courage to be messy, having the enthusiasm. I think what makes that possible is realizing that your mind is programmed to sort of be Velcro for negativity, so we have to get ahead of it, right? Charge the batteries. And then I do think the empathy thing is a big part. Like, whatever you're doing, serve, and then the momentum will grow. Every conversation is an opportunity to serve someone else. Even if you're not going to have the thing that they need, refer them to someone else. Have a conversation with someone you respect and ask them how you can help and solve the problem. That's what builds business.
I love that. Well, thank you so much, Cathy. I can't thank you enough for being
pleasure.
here and giving us your time. And I know you're not doing a lot of these, so I feel very honored that you have come in to speak to our community here and the Shine Strategy Insiders. And I do hope that you'll come back in the near future and keep us posted on all of the exciting things that are happening for you and your world.
Thank you so much. I really love talking to you. You're so good at what you do. And if you guys want more of this, you can listen to my podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. And you can always reach out to me on Instagram at Cathy.Heller. Cathy spelled with a C, because I am so crazy and I read and respond to every DM.
Beautiful. I love that. Thank you so much, Cathy.
Thank you, honey.
And I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for joining us today for the Shine Strategy Podcast. I invite you to join me at shineinsiders.com for a free masterclass where you can get more inspiration and strategies to get visible and change the world. Your voice matters. Please subscribe, rate, and share this show so we can continue to grow on this journey together. Until the next one, it's Heather Burgett, your Shine Strategist, signing off.